Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers Podcast, episode 11. I'm Ryan.
I'm Amanda, and we're your hosts.
And today we're talking about Bangkok.
Yeah, we're off to Southeast Asia.
Yes, more than one night in Bangkok. We're going to be talking about the things to do in Bangkok, traveling somewhere outside of your comfort zone, and dealing with untrustworthy people.
Yes, that's where we're going to start. So we flew from Greece to Bangkok, and after 3 months in Europe, we were a little bit anxious to get over to Southeast Asia.
Yeah, and we had an interesting night prior to arriving in Bangkok because we hadn't really put in any time to look at the visa requirements, other things that we need before going to Thailand, and then at about 12 p.m. midnight,
yeah.
Before our flight left at something like 8, we realized that, oh, hey, you're supposed to have a visa or a exit flight to go to Thailand. So a lot of countries are like this where you have to have proof of exit, and we were planning on busing out to Cambodia, so we didn't have anything. So we panicked and decided to buy the cheapest flight we could find, which was a cheap flight from Bangkok to
Ho Chi Minh
City in Vietnam. Do you remember how much that cost? Maybe $50 or something?
Yeah, maybe $50 or $100. It wasn't a significant amount of money, but at the same time, we wasted a bit of cash.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessary because when we went to the airport, it's the airlines check you before you get on the flight because they don't want to be responsible for taking you back if you get denied entry. So people from other countries were getting checked for return flights and visas, but they didn't ask us. But I remember being quite anxious and panicked about it. We were sitting in the Berlin airport. We had quite a long layover, and I was stressing out about, do we have our fake story planned out all right?
Do we know what we're going to tell them? Like, what are we doing in Bangkok for like 2 weeks before we're flying to Ho Chi Minh City?
Yeah.
And they just looked at our passports and were like, okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely something that I would recommend is before you're going anywhere, definitely check the visa requirements.
Yeah. But I don't know what I'd say to someone flying in with no proof of exit.
To Thailand?
I guess so. So I've never heard of anyone with a Canadian or U.S. passport having to show proof of exit, so I think you're fine, is what I'd say.
Yeah, I would probably say don't do what we did. But definitely check visa requirements, because if you go to Vietnam, you do need a visa. You can't enter there without a visa. If you go to China, you need a visa. Brazil, they turn you right around.
Yeah, but how would you say sometimes what you read on like the rules doesn't necessarily apply? For example, when Chile has a reciprocity fee with Canada that only gets checked at the one airport, so you don't actually have to pay it.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. Like, look at a few different sources, like Government of Canada website. Lonely Planet is often outdated, but they do have some visa sources. Just Googling like blogs and forums are definitely a good one, and look up recent traveler posts. You know, if somebody's been there in the last 2 weeks and had such and such experience, it's probably pretty accurate.
And if you're an anxious person and you can find and you don't plan on having proof of exit, not necessarily for Thailand, I think you're all right, but some other countries, if it says you need proof of exit, you can't find good information about not needing it. If you can find a cheap flight out and that will ease your anxiety, that could be a good idea.
For sure.
So we arrive in Bangkok. We were both kind of nervous about going to a country that's not first world.
Yeah, I mean, I had been to Mexico, but I definitely did the vacation style in Mexico. So this was my first time backpacking somewhere that was more second or third world. And it was your first time. So I think we were both pretty anxious. I remember going to the bathroom in the Bangkok airport and I kept my big backpack on my back because I was scared. I'd heard that people just steal stuff. So I went to the bathroom with like a 30-pound bag on my backpack and this other little one in my front.
Yeah. I think from everything I had heard beforehand, I was kind of expecting it to be more different and crazier. Like, it's a pretty crazy city, but it's still very much fits into a mold of what you expect from a city.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember seeing the airport, and the airport's super nice, and then driving in the taxi on the way to our first hostel and seeing the freeways, skyscrapers. Like, it's still, if you got put down there, you'd be like, oh, this is like a normal North American city, but just like weird because there's all this extra craziness built on top of it. But
yeah, and so that cab was kind of an interesting experience because we had our Southeast Asia Lonely Planet. So we'd planned to take the bus. And then we go, and after waiting, then we asked somebody, and we figured out that that bus actually didn't exist. And so by that point, we were pretty tired, and we just ended up taking a cab.
yeah, we had read a lot of things about scams and not trusting people heading into our travels there. So that put us in a position where we didn't really know who to ask for good information, because I guess the bus had got canceled that we wanted to take because of the new train. But with the new train, you can't really get, we were staying in Khao San Road, and there wasn't a good train access to that area of town.
Yeah, and we spent quite a while trying to figure out the entire situation. Finally, we're like, okay, we're just going to cab. And we took a standard airport taxi, which was safe.
Yeah, I remember getting in the cab, and there's seatbelts, but there's no clip-ins. And then we asked the driver if there are seatbelts, and then he just laughed at us.
Yeah. Yeah, no seatbelts there.
So that was us,
our
naive moment.
So tired. My eyes were drooping, and I was just like falling asleep slowly. And I was like, no, you can't fall asleep. Like, he might steal us. Like,
Yeah.
He might take us somewhere that we don't want to go. I was like, stay awake. You can sleep later.
Yeah, I feel kind of embarrassed to say it, but when I read all these things about, people getting not kidnapped, but taxis take you and mug you, it becomes this idea that like, oh, I'm going to get in a cab and get mugged. But it's just like, it's a little bit more common for that to happen there. Like, taxi muggings don't happen in Canada, and they happen like very randomly in Thailand. But you shouldn't get into a cab and freak out about it.
No, at the same time, you do have to be safe. I mean, don't get out and start talking to your friend and leave your bag sitting there, because they may drive away with it. I mean, it's about having that, like, finding that balance between not being stressed and anxious and on edge all the time and not trusting anybody and ruining your experience, and being safe.
Yeah. So we took a cab over to Khao San Road, which is kind of the main backpacker street. It's called the Backpackers Ghetto, the area around there, and it's quite the area. Yeah,
so it's a pedestrian street. So the cab dropped us off at one end, and then as we're walking along looking for where we were staying, it's just like everybody's hassling us. Like, oh, you want a suit? You want dinner? You want this? You want that?
You want ping pong show?
Masaje? Like, anything you can imagine that you might want, they're offering it. And everybody's just shouting at you.
But especially suits, ping pong shows,
massages,
and drugs. And I'm assuming the massages aren't actually massages.
I think some massages are just massages. Some they do just on the street.
Yeah. So those ones.
I think those are pretty just...
Lots of other massages available though.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I had an interesting massage in Cambodia, but we'll talk about that in another episode.
Well, now I feel like
It wasn't what you're referring to.
Okay.
But it was a little bit more than the American massages. Let's just say she like got on the bed and kind of like crawled on me to like massage all parts of my body. Except some parts.
Yeah. Anyways.
There was no happy endings. It was weird though.
Anywho.
What are we moving on to now?
So we checked into our hotel, and that was the thing I was probably most excited about, was going from Europe to Bangkok, Southeast Asia in general. Things get a hell of a lot cheaper, so you can get into a lot nicer places. We stayed in It was a hotel.
Yeah,
right?
it was the hotel. We had a hotel
With a
room.
rooftop pool, air conditioning, in-suite bathroom. Obviously, if it's a hotel room. But yeah, not something we were used to being in hostels for 3 months.
Yeah, it was called the Rika Inn. It was really nice. So we were pretty uncomfortable for our days in Bangkok, and we're also jet lagged coming from Europe. So we actually spent a lot of time in our hotel room in the Rika Inn.
Yeah, this is something that I've talked to a few people about with like the first time getting to a sketchy country. Like if you're going to Vietnam, or maybe there's a few places that might be like that in South America, but not many.
Yeah.
But you show up, get to your hotel, and your hotel's super nice. You've got TV, air conditioning, and outside it's just madness. At least in our minds, it was like, it is madness, but it's not madness we're used to, not comfortable with. So we were very happy to find reasons to stay in our hotel room because it is, you're way out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and I found too, it was just so much sensory overload. Like everything we did in Bangkok, I was like too much sensory overload. Like I just want to go to the hotel and just like sit in silence and just like be in this cold air and lie in the bed.
Yeah, because it's very hot. There is the smell is a combination of vehicle fumes, like piss, poo, food. And then it's so hot.
You kind of walk out and it's just like, for me, I have wavy hair, which turns curly in humidity, and my hair is just like poof every time. Layer of sweat kind of slicked all over your body. Yeah. Then it's like you're walking the street and there's dirt on you, and
noise like crazy. Music blaring out of every restaurant, vehicle, horns, everything.
Yeah, it's overwhelming to say the least.
But the one thing that's nice about being somewhere where walking down the street is outside of your comfort zone is first, you are challenging yourself, and you feel a bit more of this sense of fulfillment from doing kind of everyday tasks. I remember we went and crossed to the main street, which is like a 6-lane street, somewhere close to where we were staying, to go for dinner one night. And crossing the street in Thailand is kind of like you kind of just go across the street when you see a chance, because there's no one's stopping for pedestrians.
And there's no street lights.
Yeah, they have like the lanes and like some street lights, but no one really like respects. There's no traffic law, like that's not a thing. The best way I've heard kind of movement in Asia described as if it's just like water running. You know, it doesn't ever stop. Like when you walk into a convenience store or something in Canada, right? And there's 2 people going either way at the door. Maybe one person's going to open the door for the other person, or one person stops so the other person can exit. In Asia, everyone always keeps moving. Like no one's going to stop for anyone. Same in traffic. Like, you know, it's a traffic jam. Cars are stopped. Cars are going to try to weave around those cars, go on the outside. It's just everyone's trying to go. They're just going to flow into any space that's available.
Yeah, it's complete chaos. So crossing a street is just like, we crossed that road, ate dinner, successfully crossed back, and we were like, wow, that's a win for today.
Yeah, no, it's like it's a pretty big win. And it's kind of, I think a lot of people, there's some people who are very at home in uncomfortable situations, but for us, we were
very much out of our comfort zone at that point.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's not too uncommon.
No, and you know what? One of the things I love about travel is pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. I love going to places where I can compare the culture between Canada, you know, like Australia, but I also love going somewhere that is completely, absolutely different and just feeling uncomfortable, because you can find some really amazing things there, like the food.
Yeah. So the food in Thailand is awesome.
I feel like awesome isn't even a good enough word to describe the food in Thailand. Like, it's one of my favorite cuisines.
Yeah, and I don't think I had ever had Thai food before going to Thailand. Another food item I'd never tried before going to Thailand was the Big Mac.
I forgot that was your first Big Mac.
Yeah, I had my first Big Mac after a night of drinking buckets.
Eating bugs.
Eating
Another
bugs.
new thing for you.
Yeah. First Big Mac in Bangkok. Pretty good.
Yeah, so we did go out one night. Because we were staying at our hotel, we didn't really meet people. So we decided to go for drinks first. We had dinner and drinks. We got a bucket, which for anybody who's heard stories or anything about Southeast Asia, that's pretty common. They give you basically what's a Mickey of alcohol and some mix, and you put it in a bucket with straws and you drink it.
So the common bucket is a Mickey if you're Canadian, or if not, 13-ounce bottle of liquor.
Yeah.
Samsung? Samsung, yes. It's not Samsung. I think it's like the Thai whiskey stuff. I think it's called like Song Sim or something like that. Little bottle of the Thai Red Bull and a pop. And then you put it in a bucket with some ice of questionable nature, and then you drink it. Yeah.
And then you just enjoy whatever comes out after that.
Yeah.
Not comes out of your body, what comes out of the evening.
Yeah, it's invigorating. One thing I found helpful in Southeast Asia was being like slightly drunk. I remember kind of feeling overwhelmed with like everything that's going on, and then you have a couple beers and you're like, okay, like I'm now more on speed with what's going on in here.
Yeah, for sure. So we had a bucket and we went out to the street. We're like, we need to make some friends or something. Like, let's do something fun. So we found this stall that was selling like deep fried bugs and started talking to some people there. And then they were trying the deep fried bugs. So we're like, oh, sure, when in Thailand. So we tried some crickets and some deep fried frogs. They're pretty good.
Yeah, not bad. It's kind of like eating a part of a chicken wing without much meat on it.
Yeah, like kind of like a sinewy, chewy kind of burnt part.
Yeah, and I don't know about deep fried crickets, but crickets in general, I think raw crickets are actually really good for you, super high in protein. I think people are trying to make...
Thanks for this nutrition lesson.
Yeah, so apparently there are some people who are trying to popularize cricket protein, like in the paleo scene.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's happening. I'd buy one if I could find it.
Really?
Yeah, apparently it's super good for you.
I was more into the bug eating than you were. Ryan had like one of each. He's like, I'm done. And we'd bought this big bag and I was like, I feel like we should eat it all. He's like, it was like $1. We don't need to finish it.
Yeah. But for me, another thing that kind of related to what I had heard beforehand was, a lot of people getting sick over there because food hygiene isn't a thing.
No, it
doesn't exist there yet. So I was trying to be very cautious. I would eat meat and I'd eat rice and no vegetables.
Or fruit. And the fruit's so good there. I was eating like fruit and vegetables. I was like, whatever.
I did get more comfortable with fruit after a while, but then I also did get viciously ill.
Yeah, I was like, whatever, diarrhea. I'll take it. I wanted to eat this pineapple.
So I don't know what the best strategy is there. It seems like no matter how cautious you are, it's almost like chance or you're just going to get sick. It seems like everyone gets sick at some point.
My advice to people would be get traveler's diarrhea medication before you go.
Oh yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Like, I will never ever travel again without Cipro after you getting so sick and me getting a little bit sick. For me, it's I was sick numerous times in South America, and I think it's just part of the experience. Like, I don't want to say no to something that I want to try.
What's part of the experience?
I feel like getting diarrhea is part of the experience of Southeast Asia.
I suppose so. Having diarrhea and puking in like a super hot, disgusting washroom that doesn't flush, and you have to like use buckets of water to try to get the stuff back down.
All part of the experience.
Yeah, it's just relating to it is part of the experience, and it's one of the things when going back, looking back on it, it's not something you really remember. You remember it kind of in an abstract way. There's a lot of uncomfortable stuff, but people don't seem to remember that. They only remember the good times.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, in saying that, like, I don't think that you should fill up your water bottle from the river. I don't think you should drink the tap water. I think you should brush your teeth with bottled water and drink bottled water. And I mean, if you're in the middle of the jungle where there's clearly like no good sanitation, like maybe don't eat there, like bring some snacks with you. But in terms of like not having a fruit smoothie on Koh San Road. I feel like you have to try those things in Thailand. Like you have to try the papaya salad.
Yeah. So what was your favorite food in Thailand?
Oh, my favorite Thai meal is sticky rice with coconut milk and mango.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I also love green curry.
Yeah.
What about you?
What about pad thai?
Ooh, I love pad thai too. And I also love papaya salad.
So I think pad thai was the only food I knew about in terms of Thai foods, but what really I fell in love with the curries. Green curry, especially massaman curry. That might be my favorite curry.
Yeah, you love massaman.
Panang.
Yeah, the food is so good there. And I mean, Ryan and I are still in search of a good Thai restaurant that lives up to our expectations. I think we've had really good Thai food at 2 places since our trip to Thailand in 2011. It's just really hard to find something. And, you get it so affordably on the street. And the street vendors really do a fabulous job. And
some of the street vendors.
Did we have bad street food? I liked all my street food. But yeah, no, there's definitely bad street vendors. But on Koh San Road, we've had some pretty good street food.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice too, because like with a pad thai, they cook everything. So you don't have to worry too much about getting sick just because it is like being heated all the time. It's more the raw food that you do need to be careful with.
Yeah, the raw food. So in terms of sights, what did we see in Bangkok?
We saw a few different things. We spent a day kind of exploring. We went to the temple of the Emerald Buddha, which was cool. What was that? It was called Wat Phra Cow. I think looking at my journal, all the different things we saw, I was like, I don't know what these words are. We also went to the Grand Palace. And there I remember I was wearing like Lululemon capris and like a cardigan, and I had to wear a skirt because you can't show like your ankles. So I had to put a skirt on over top of my capris. It's definitely very conservative there.
Yeah. And then we saw the giant reclining Buddha.
Yeah, so it's called Wat Pho, and it's the largest reclining Buddha, and that's really, really cool. It's this like massive golden Buddha just like lying on her side, and you can go and do this little sort of ceremony where you donate. Was it money that we donated?
You put small coins into the 50 pots, and apparently does something for you.
Brings you luck, maybe?
I think my favorite site, I liked the big Buddha. And I also liked the Golden Mountain because you got to hike up to this temple and have a great view of the city.
Yeah, I liked that as well. It was also really quiet up there, and it's cool. Like everywhere with the Buddhist religion, you take your shoes off before entering any sort of temple. So you leave your shoes out, and you can go and like light an incense or like pray if you want. It's just there's a lot of very calming places. And it's cool in such a city that's so chaotic and so hectic to find these places of stillness.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was pretty interesting getting around though, because Bangkok is so big and we were used to walking everywhere in Europe. And so I think we set out to walk and people harass you like crazy. It's just so overwhelming. So you eventually give in to either a tuk-tuk, which is basically a motorized buggy with like a bench seat in the back, or a cab. Yeah,
riding in a tuk-tuk is kind of that's like one of the things in Southeast Asia, right?
Yeah, I mean,
food, tuk-tuks, buckets,
bugs. Maybe not bugs.
Elephants,
yeah, for sure. We also took a riverboat, though. We took 2 riverboats. So one was on the big river, which was fine. We got on there. The second was down a small river. And I think that was one of the craziest transportation experiences I've had to this date.
Yeah, the big one is fairly normal in a way. The small ones, which are more of like kind of river taxis, it's kind of like a big canoe with a motor strapped to the back of it and then tarps on the side to keep the gross spray from the canals in. Bangkok's a pretty low sea level city, so there's water, lots of canals everywhere. So it's actually quite a bit faster than taking taxis because traffic's so bad. Quite a bit cheaper as well. And that was one of my favorite experiences there because it was more of a authentic thing where we were the only foreigners, Barangs, on the boat.
Yeah,
it was
basically just said the name of our stop that we had to get off of, and we were like, oh, hopefully this works out. Because basically people were like, they would stop for maybe like 5 seconds.
Yeah, hop on, hop off.
Yeah, and it's like jump quick, like otherwise you're going to get into the poo water.
Yeah, thankfully we were at the last stop, so we didn't miss our stop because we would have if we hadn't been.
Yeah, it was. I remember there was a lot of anxiety and stress for me in that whole experience. I was like, oh, I don't really want this water on me. Like, I hope we don't miss our stop. Like, can we communicate what we need to these people? But the Thai people are really, really friendly.
They're friendly, but the problem we had with the ferries is that there are a lot of scams out there. On our way walking to the first one, someone told us we were looking for the ferry. Someone asked us, oh, where are you going? We tell him we're going to the river ferry. And he says, oh, no, ferries are closed.
I think he said the river is closed.
Yeah, the river's closed because
what?
the king's doing something or the queen. And that wasn't an uncommon thing. People will tell you stuff's closed. Sometimes for fairly straightforward means, like, oh, they're a taxi driver, they want to take you on a tour. Oh, the river's closed, I'll take you on a tour. And sometimes for not so straightforward things, they'll tell you something's closed and then you continue on, find it's open, and you're like, why did that person tell me it's closed? They didn't want anything from me. Were they just trying to deceive me?
Yeah, it's a very, very strange thing.
And it's hard because
you have to have your wits about you. Like if somebody tells you something's closed, maybe go check it out for yourself.
And it was the same thing with the Royal Palace too, where we were walking towards it. Oh no, it's closed. That seems to be a thing in Bangkok. If someone tells you something's closed, just ignore them.
Yeah, it's probably not closed.
But it creates this problem because you really don't know who to trust, so you kind of have to assume to trust no one, which really kind of closes you off to experiencing some cool things.
Mm-hmm. I think it's good to, kind of take the, like, you don't need to listen to them. Like if somebody asks you, oh, where are you going? It's fine to like answer as opposed to being rude, or because we did have some nice people actually help us out. But if somebody tells you, oh, it's closed or you can't go there, and they're not really giving you any like real hard evidence of this, just say like, thanks, I'm going to go look anyways, or thanks for your help, and walk away. Like try not to close yourself off too much to the locals, but at the same time, take what they're saying with a grain of salt, because people are trying to scam you just with the way that tourism is in Southeast Asia right now.
Yeah. And there's a lot of opportunities where I don't know if opportunity is the right word, but possibilities for getting angry and upset because there is some fairly, the people hawking stuff are, they're very aggressive. The people trying to sell you suits, ping pong shows, you're going to get it over and over and over again if you're staying in the Khao San area. But just, they're trying to make money in one of the only ways there is there. So,
yeah, I mean, you have to know that you've gone to a place where tourism is the main form of making money, and they want your money. They want you to do their thing. And, it's okay to talk to them and engage with them or say no if you want to. I mean, we just got to the point where we would just stop saying no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. We just kind of ignore it.
Yeah, because once you engage, that kind of gives them the lead to think, oh, maybe there's a chance for this person. If you engage, they'll ask you, hey, buddy, where are you from? And then you say Canada, and then they immediately follow you down the street trying to sell you a suit, telling you like, oh, women are going to like you more if you get a suit from my shop.
Yeah, it's kind of amusing. So that was our experience the first time in Thailand, or in Bangkok. We traveled around Southeast Asia and ended in Bangkok.
Yeah. And I think going through going from Bangkok the first time where you're like, wow, I've never been in somewhere this chaotic and this crazy. And then we went through Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, to the point where you get back to Thailand and you're like, oh, wow, there's cars on the road here. It's a pretty developed country.
Yeah, this is like second world. What were we thinking?
And we really were able to enjoy it a lot more the second time and kind of get more into the more modern areas of the city, which I enjoyed more.
Yeah, so the second time around, we stayed in CM, which is right downtown in more of the business district. And we were really able to see the difference between the different areas of the city, like the religious areas, the poverty, the business, where the tourism is.
And Thailand's a really, I don't want to use the word interesting, but there's this very stark contrast between there's super luxury and then there's super poverty. We went to a mall to go to a VIP movie, which is you essentially have your own private pods in the movie theater. Maybe there's 12 seats in an entire movie theater.
I think I wrote that there's 20.
And then the recliners, you've got blankets, people will serve you.
Yeah, it's basically like your own home movie with a massive screen and a lazy boy. And they bring you blankets, and we got like an alcoholic beverage and popcorn served to us.
Yeah, definitely a cool experience to try.
Yeah, I think we paid 35 Canadian dollars for it each.
But the whole mall was just so luxurious. There was a Lamborghini dealership and a Maserati dealership, and I think there was a Ferrari one in there. And the prices for food court and stuff like that were more than they are in Canada, because there is this super, super wealthy people. The people with connections there have a lot of wealth, but, you know, they get that wealth by taking it from the 95% of the population who lives in very severe poverty.
Yeah. And so we had an interesting experience our second time around because Thailand was actually flooding. And so we show up in Bangkok from being in the south of Thailand, and there's people have left their cars on bridges that are up high. There's sandbagging everywhere. Bottled water is low. And Ryan was really sick.
Yeah, I couldn't get myself off of the toilet for fear of liquids.
Evacuation mode, as we've come to call it since South America.
Yeah.
Was what your body was doing.
For days and days, and fever.
Yeah, I was sick one day, but after that I started feeling better, and then Ryan just got worse, and then it was pretty stressful because he actually couldn't leave the room, but you know, I still wanted to keep like fluids in him, get him some food. So I'm going out on the street by myself, which was a little bit nerve-wracking for me. And then on top of that, it's like hard to find bottled water. People are stressing, people are sandbagging. And I was like, oh my God, like we need to get out of here. It was kind of scary.
Yeah, and that's one of the moments where I really appreciated having someone to travel with. And since we've talked to a lot of people who get, when they're traveling by themselves, get really, one of those moments when you do get sick are the toughest to make it through.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one guy that we met in traveling South America, and we met up with him twice just by accident in two different countries. And he said he got really sick in one country, and it was definitely a low point for him traveling alone. So I think, yeah, I was really thankful to have you there, and I really appreciated having you by my side at that point. Just having to go out by myself in this like chaotic city during this stressful flood period, and then having you sick was scary for me.
Yeah. So what would you say was your preferable area of the city? Let's just come. What area would you stay in again if you went back?
Oh, that's a good question. I really loved seeing both areas. I think I would like to go back to Khao San Road.
You really?
I would probably stay there. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I'd just go out there. I liked CM better, I think. I think it was more comfortable. It wasn't as chaotic, and I felt that I could get more of an experience there without everybody just like yelling at me all the time.
Yeah. And Khao San is very younger, backpacker oriented. It's got all the vice opportunities, drugs, prostitution. Maybe not right on Khao San, but in that area, like that's what people there are trying to sell you. The people who want to party, they want to go to ping pong shows, stuff like that. Whereas since Bangkok is becoming a fairly important hub as Southeast Asia is getting more popular for tourism and industry, there are a lot more upper class options. One of the cool things about Bangkok that we missed out on doing was the rooftop bars. There's a couple really high skyscrapers where you can go to rooftop bars. Like if you've seen the Hangover 2 where they go to the one really cool one.
Yeah, and that was our plan. That's like what we planned to do our second time around in Bangkok before Ryan got sick. So I think, yeah, I'd stay back in like the downtown area. Probably do that. I like to go to Khao San Road and eat some more street food though. I really liked that street food. I think though, take a look, like there's lots of good places to stay. Just take a look at, what works for you. Read on Lonely Planet, read on Wiki Travel, see what you're looking for out of your trip. I think for us, we're probably not looking for that big party trip the next time around. So we'd probably stay somewhere off Khao San Road.
And a lot of people coming in, it's the hub, like you enter Southeast Asia through Bangkok. So a lot of people we've talked to have had fairly negative impressions of it. It seems to be common to say like, oh, I didn't really like Bangkok. They went to the South Islands after Cambodia, stuff like that, and they enjoyed that more. So I think it's important to go, instead of spending your time there, maybe right as you arrive, and then it's chaotic, overwhelming, stresses you out. You leave, and then, go to the airport somewhere else and leave. It's cool to come back to it again because it's a city that has so many options and things to do. And if you can come back when you are a little bit more comfortable with Southeast Asia in general, you can see a few new sides to it and have a whole different interaction with the city. And that's when we both really kind of fell in love with it in a way when we came back for the second time. But one thing we should touch on before we leave is the fact that most people are in transit when they get to Bangkok, either coming in to leave to get to the airport, or most people coming in and then going other places. So there's a few options for how you're going to go to other places. We took a bus out to go to Siem Reap the first time we were there. And then the second time we were there, we took a train down to
Thai Islands.
Yeah, I can't remember which city, but on the way to Koh Phangan. And then the third time we were there, we arrived by bus. But there are buses that leave from the bus station. The bus station's big and nice and fairly easy to go to and get a ticket.
Yeah, it's very easy to navigate.
Same with the train station. There are quite a few scams at travel agents in and around the Khao San area. So I think my advice to people would be, if you're trying to book your next thing, it's probably better to go to the train station and go to the bus station, because we've heard a lot about tourist buses that leave from the Khao San area where it's full of backpackers and they steal people's baggage and have people hiding in compartments, hiding in the baggage area during the trip to take stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's good to just go and plan your own transportation. Like it's not difficult to do. It's not a difficult thing. So just, make that extra little effort and do that, because you'll feel good about that, first of all. And second of all, it's a lot safer, I think.
Yeah, it's part of the adventure when you can take a cab and try to hassle them to get them to use the meter, and then get to the bus station,
haggle for your ticket.
Yeah, it adds to the experience. And if you're going to
bus around,
if you're going to the source, it's usually safer.
Yeah, and if locals are doing it, it's definitely a much safer option, I think.
Yeah. So is there anything you want to add?
Go to Bangkok, because it's awesome. Go to Thailand. I love Thailand.
Yeah, recounting and looking through our journals and preparing for this episode and talking about it makes me kind of long to go back, which I'm sure we will at some point.
Definitely.
So we're going to post some photos and
some links, some show notes
on our website, theworldwanderers.com.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Until next time.